Back we are, folks. Good to have you with us, and a good morning to you at Boston's talk station WRKO. Mike Siegel for Jeff Kuhner, and it's good to have you with us. As Jeff is away, we're sitting in and enjoying having the conversation with all of you. Let me just say that we've got, as I wanted to point out, as I mentioned before the break, you want to talk about oppressiveness of this government. We'll get right back to your calls, so stay right there. Report just came out. The Environmental Protection Agency is now floating a rule, haven't implemented it yet, but they have to go through the process of presenting it, which would give them authority to bypass the courts and unilaterally garnish your paycheck if you're accused of violating EPA rules. Now, the Internal Revenue Service can do that, but EPA can't, but they're trying to do it. This is Obama controlling this country without due process of law. In other words, if they think you violated any EPA rule, they're going to garnish your paycheck to pay the fine. They've collected more fines every year at the EPA, including a $75,000 fine on a homeowner in Wyoming because he built a pond on his rural property. Well, the senator from Wyoming, John Barrasso, says they have a history of overreaching, and once again, they're trying to take power they don't have from American citizens. Let me give you some examples of what the EPA is trying to do. This Wyoming, he's a welder, a small business owner like many of you. His name is Andy Johnson, as I mentioned. He's been threatened with a $75,000 per day fine, per day, for violating what they call the Clean Water Act because he built a pond on his property without a permit from the Army Corps of Engineers, his own property. This is not somebody else's property, it's his. It's okay for this administration to pollute this country with diseased children coming in, but it's not okay for a guy to build a clean pond on his own property. You get this, folks? A group of gold miners in Idaho are facing $37,000 in fine for suction dredging mining on the Salmon River. They did it to protest EPA restrictions in this dispute that's ongoing as to whether dredging threatened endangered salmon and steelhead trout. So they're facing a $37,000 fine, arbitrarily from the EPA, and they're going to garnish the paychecks. A Missouri resident, Brent McMinn, finally came to an agreement with the EPA. He's going to pay $20,000 for violating the Clean Water Act when he and his crew dumped dirt into tributaries of a creek while working on a dam. Where are they supposed to dump it? So now he's paying $20,000 as a fine for doing that. Does the EPA have the right to do this? Why are they trying to go out and do this right now? If they garnish your wages, what a powerful incentive for people to agree to expensive settlements instead of getting their money taken from their paychecks. There have been attempts to reach the EPA about this. They don't want to answer any questions. They're just simply putting a notice in the Federal Register saying that federal law allows them to garnish non-federal wages to collect delinquent non-tax debts owed the United States without first obtaining a court order. That's what Barack Obama's Environmental Protection Agency is about to do to you. And then there's Costco. Jim Senegal, one of the co-founders with Jeff Brotman, decided because he gave $100,000 to Obama for his campaigns for president, and Costco employees have given over $220,000 to Obama's campaigns. Now, all of a sudden, Senegal pulls the book America by Dinesh D'Souza from sale, as a caller said yesterday. Well, that story is changing day to day as well, because apparently, and you can go to the bank on this, as Dinesh D'Souza himself said, this is not about lack of sales of the book, because they've got books that are way below sales of America by Dinesh D'Souza in Costco, and they don't pull those books. It's because Obama got to Jim Senegal, and he constantly has referred to Senegal as a friend of his, Obama has, publicly, and he said, look, pull that book. It attacks me, and I don't want you to carry it. That's what left-wingers do. They don't want free speech. They want collective speech of their point of view. If they had their way, there would be no free speech in this country. And Senegal acceded to Obama, pulled the book, and now all of a sudden, because of the outrage, they're putting it back out for sale. This is a fraud. Again, Obama, free speech doesn't matter. He doesn't want anything attacking him. He will use any means necessary to have the message presented that he's a good guy. And actually, the poll just done by Quinnipiac University says that Obama is the worst president since World War II, according to the American people. Congratulations, Barack. You won one. You're the worst president in this country since World War II. And if they ask that question about the 20th century to now, from the year 1900 to now, probably the only guy worse would be Warren G. Harding, who was controlled by other interests and was a corrupt president. Scandals broke through his administration over and over again. All right, let's go to Ben first of all. Ben, you're on with Mike Siegel at WRKO. Good morning. In for Jeff Kuhner. How are you?
Good morning, Mike. Good. You know, I'm not saying Sarah Palin is the best choice or the best intellectual. I tuned in when you had a caller saying, how unintellectual she was. It just reminds me of one of the things I saw on Facebook that said that this country was built by men in denim and being ruined by men in suits. I think you could make the argument that the country wasn't built on intellect. It was built on common sense, good people, hard work, morals, values, and most importantly, religion. And not just any religion, the Christian religion. And
I didn't want to get into the whole thing with the guy, but you're right. Look, intellectual. Woodrow Wilson was a great intellectual, and he tried to have the precursor to the United Nations, and it didn't work. He was an idealist, and it didn't work. Jimmy Carter was a bright guy. His idea of connecting the human rights situation in Russia, Soviet Union, with our policy toward them didn't work. It was ludicrous. It was naive. So you can be bright and also be incompetent as a political leader.
Right. I mean, I guess the bottom line is, I'm not going to say that her style of management would work today with the diversity of the country, but I think we have to step back and realize that the intellectuals that have kind of gotten to the point of political correctness has caused a lot of loss of ground, so to speak, for America in general.
Actually, I think it would work. I think, first of all, Sarah Palin was a very effective governor. I mean, there were surpluses in her budget.
Well, my cousin was a trooper up in Alaska, and she wasn't liked by everybody, but the people that didn't like her...
She won a primary against a popular Republican, and she was reelected, and she was popular. And by the way, if you have standards, and you govern by those standards, that is colorblind, not about blacks, whites, Hispanics, Indians, Native Americans, anybody, Asians... If you operate a government based on predictable standards, reasonable standards, call it law and order with justice, you're going to be okay. I mean, you would know what is expected of you. But in this country, it's so soft and so changing that we are cowardly in the way we operate, and the Republicans are part of the problem.
I guess my point was, I think Sarah Palin is right to bring the impeachment thing up at this point. It is a calculated risk, but I think to wait would be worse, because I think it's certainly justifiable, and if they don't, if people haven't figured out by now the agenda of this administration and this individual as president in particular, they never will.
I appreciate it, Ben, and I thank you for making that point, and you're right. This new catastrophe at the border demonstrates that clearly. John is next. John, you're on with Mike Siegel for Jeff Kuhner at WRKO. How are you?
How you doing, Mike?
Doing good.
This is John.
Yes, sir. Go ahead.
Okay, very nice to talk to you. I had a couple of things I wanted to talk. Actually, I wanted to talk to you about the affirmative action thing, but these other things you were talking about the EPA.
Yeah.
To me, I consider the EPA just like the brown shirts that were in Nazi Germany. I consider the Homeland Security like a army of occupation in the United States. Obama himself, when he first came into office, he says, I'm going to arm the EPA to as good, if not better, armament than the United States Army. And he is doing this. The EPA is destroying the fishing industry on both coasts. It's destroying all types of agricultural development in the country under the guise of this, environmental protection thing. And here in Massachusetts, the EPA has actually more power than the state police. Now, saying that, I want to go to the thing about affirmative action. Now, I've been watching affirmative action for like over 40 years. It does not work. It's a hindrance to the minorities and the black people. It makes in such a situation that they don't really need to earn their position. I mean, I worked construction and stuff like this here. I had to go do an apprenticeship. I had to do all kinds of things in order to, earn my level. These people are actually able to just walk into a job. They're incompetent on the job. Not their fault. It's because it's not being run correctly.
I agree with you about that, and I thank you for calling. The point I made is affirmative action was instituted by a Republican, Richard Nixon. It wasn't done by Democrats, and whatever good it did, it's not needed anymore. Let's give kids a proper education. Inner city, suburb, rural, all of them get a good education and let their talents take them where they go. Let us go next to Lincoln at WRKO. Mike Siegel for Jeff Kuhner. Hello, Lincoln.
Yes, good morning. I'm glad you must have been reading my mind. You brought up the Costco issue again this morning. I mentioned it to you yesterday. One thing I want to point out, Richard Galanti issued a statement. We're bringing it back not for political reasons, but because the book is now selling well.
That's baloney.
We didn't pull the book on July 1st for political reasons. We are not pulling it back in the stores now for political reasons.
That's baloney.
Because we sell merchandise, and D'Souza's book is now selling well.
They had books that sold less than his in that store before the book was pulled.
Yeah, they can't even be honest with their release of their statement.
No, that's absolutely true, and thank you for calling. Jim Senegal gave Obama a ton of money. Why do they support this guy? He's not in favor of corporate entities. He's in favor of, really, fascism is the connection between government and the big corporations, the power structure uniting them together. That's what fascism is in a pure sense. So I'm not trying to talk about this as Mussolini in Italy. I'm talking about the concept of fascism unites big corporate entities with government influence over those corporate entities. That's what it's about, the integration of the two. And that's what's going on here. 8:17 it is. Mike Siegel in for Jeff Kuhner. Let's get the lines jammed up. What about this EPA ruling, where they say they're going to garnish your wages if they think you violated an EPA regulation? And there's no due process. They just take the money and they say, we don't have to go to court to do it. You want to watch your paycheck go away because you own a small business, and they say, if you own a garage where you do oil changes, and they don't think you dispose of the oil properly, they're going to garnish your wages. What do you make of that? 617-266-6868. Back to your calls right after this. We're back with you, folks. Mike Siegel for Jeff Kuhner. Nice to be with you. As we're talking about a notice that just came out, the EPA filed in the Federal Register. They're going to take your money through garnishment of wages. If they decide that you're violating any EPA rule, they're going to take your money, which would then force you to have to make a deal and cut a deal with the EPA to pay them rather than have your wages garnished. That's more oppression from the Obama administration. Talking about Iraq and the fact that now ISIS has control admitted by Maliki, the prime minister of Iraq, that ISIS has control of a chemical weapons plant where there is sarin gas housed. How quick is it going to get to this country, I wonder? What should we do about that? Should we go over there and blow up that plant or take control of that sarin gas? Thanks to Obama, Iraq is becoming a balkanized region with radicals taking over portions of that territory, including parts of Syria and Iraq. And so we go on. People forget about what he did in Syria. He said, well, I've got a red line. You use chemical weapons, Assad, and you're going to pay the price. Well, he used them, and he never paid the price, did he? So we've got some of that, plus what's happening at the southern border and the disease problem of kids coming in with disease. The MS-13 teenagers, 16 of them, are being housed and maybe dispersed around the country. They're murderers and butchers, trained that way as young children. And we've got this huge problem in this country. Let's go back to your calls. I appreciate your patience. We start with William. William, you're on with Mike Siegel for Jeff Kuhner at WRKO. Good morning to you.
Good morning, Mike. I'm really concerned about the next election. I really am, because if they got the IRS in their pocket, if they got the EPA, if they got all these agencies, the elections committees, this and that, they already got this in their pocket. The company that controls the voting machines, we need to take a serious look at them. The last elections, I know people don't want to hear this, but the last elections, Harry Reid and all the key politicians on the Democratic side won by 20 points. Isn't that mysterious? Not only that, if they're bringing in illegal aliens to cheat us at the polls, That's another. They're already scheming and scamming on how they're going to win this election. They already have a plan. They already got their next person picked.
Yeah, but William, I gotta hit you on this one, because the Republicans are just as much to blame on immigration, because they want the cheap labor coming in for their big business friends. The U.S. Chamber of Commerce is funding candidates who support illegal immigration.
Oh, yeah.
It must be a business group.
That's why, as independent, conservative-minded people from Massachusetts are kicking their tails. We're the ones that did it to Brown. We're the ones that go and talk at the bars all night long. You know something? We're the ones that go to the coffee shops in the morning while we're waiting to get our donuts, and we bring something up. These Republicans, put it this way, the country's lost. The coup's going on right now. That's why they're bringing in fresh parties from South America. They know that these kids, and not only that, these children, right, are not children. Those are adults. I've worked with Guatemalans before. And another thing, too, this is a horrible thing. African Americans have to take this into consideration. Venezuelans, Colombians, Brazilians, Guatemalans are super-duper racist when it comes to black people. And this is it's just not productive for this country.
You make the point, and I thank you for it, and I think you made it very well. I don't know about that racism in those other countries, but I do know the jobs of African Americans are going to be undermined because illegal aliens come in and work for cheap dollars, much cheaper than African Americans should work for. And the result's going to be loss of jobs. It just goes on and on and on. All right, back to your calls. I appreciate your patience, as I said. Brian is next. Brian, you're on with Mike Siegel at WRKO. Good morning.
Good morning, Mike. I called to ask you about the specific wording of that EPA notice, but it's funny. Before we get there, Warren G. Harding, the one that you said would be the possible runner-up for the other was president.
Yeah.
Another Democrat.
Yeah, that's true.
And what's it called? Also, Costco. I think it's hysterical that Costco aligns themselves with the left, because aren't the big box stores the number one target of liberals? They hate big box stores.
They don't like them coming into their towns, but I can tell you from my own knowledge, Jeff Brotman is a left-wing radical, one of the co-founders of they sat around one night and had the idea of opening this Costco, and they did it. And he's one of those left-wingers. He's a Jewish guy who's not even supportive of Israel. Look, Steven Spielberg is just like that. Steven Spielberg actually, in an organization in L.A., gave Obama an award for his work on Israel. Hey, you gotta be nuts. He's the worst president for Israel in the history of the country since Harry Truman. Are you kidding?
I hear you, Mike. Hey, so the thing is, so concerning the EPA notice, do you still have the wording of that in front of you?
The actual wording, no. I have the report, not the wording.
Okay. When you read it, you said that the EPA wanted to be able to garnish non-federal wages.
That's correct.
So in other words, they carved out people that work for the federal government. So
that's
in other
correct.
words, if this guy that put the pond on his his land, if he had a federal job and therefore belonged to the union, and therefore was most likely an Obama supporter, the EPA couldn't garnish his wages.
That's correct.
Isn't that interesting?
And they also said that they don't have to go to court. They don't need to get a court order to garnish the wages.
I just think it's hysterical that if you're, quote-unquote, in the club and employed by the federal government, we won't go after you. We'll just go after the evil private sector folks.
You got it. I appreciate the call, and I thank you very much for it, too. You got it right on point. Thelma, you're on with Mike Siegel, in for Jeff Kuhner at WRKO. Good morning, Thelma.
Two things I would like to say. My husband was in World War II. His half-track blew up, and he got the Purple Heart. He just passed away last year, and we had been married 64 years.
Well, thank you for his service to the country.
I will not be here too much longer as I have lung cancer. But I have children and grandchildren and great-grandchildren. And I'm so worried for this country. You asked, was there anybody that could take over as president? I listen to Mark Levine every night. This man is a lawyer. He's intelligent. He knows the Constitution. I don't know why an ordinary man like this doesn't put in for running the country, we're going to hell.
Well, I think a guy like Mark Levin likes being in the position of bringing this stuff up without any restrictions on office. When you're president, you don't have all the power you want that you think you have, even though Obama's doing it, but he's doing it illegally. If you stick with the law, president doesn't have unlimited power. Mark Levin can get out there, I can get out there, Jeff can get out there and say what we tell the truth about, and we tell the truth rather than being restricted from that. And so I think Mark Levin likes being where he is. I wish you well, and I hope you're with us another 30 years, and not a short time, because you have a lot to say. And thank you for your husband's service to the country. We appreciate that very much. Mike Siegel, and good to have you with us for Jeff Kuhner at Boston's talk station WRKO. It's 8:30. Stay right on the lines. 617-266-6868. Back to your calls right after this. Back we are, folks. Nice to be here with all of you as we continue along with our conversation. Mike Siegel for Jeff Kuhner. And the fellow called before the break about the EPA with its new rule filing that you won't hear about in most of the major media. They don't want to talk about that. But there is a filing in the Federal Register by the EPA proposing a new rule. And what it says is that the federal law allows the EPA, and I'm going to quote from the EPA filing in the Federal Register, quote, to garnish non-federal wages to collect delinquent non-tax debts owed the United States without first obtaining a court order, end quote. So they believe they can go out and take your money from your paycheck if they think you violated an EPA rule. As I said, a simple example is a guy who owns a garage, does oil changes. If they don't think you got rid of the old oil properly, they're going to just garnish your wages. And they don't need to go to court to get an order to do it. That's what they're saying. That's the oppressive, barbaric nature of this administration's policies without due process. They don't care about due process. Couldn't care less, which is a pinnacle of what this country is supposed to be about. Russ, first of all, you're on with Mike Siegel for Jeff Kuhner at WRKO. Good morning.
Good morning, Mike. The EPA
supposed to be about. Russ, first of all, you're on with Mike Siegel for Jeff Kuhner at WRKO. Good morning.
Good morning, Mike. The EPA, as far as I'm concerned, is one of Obama's brown shirt divisions. And let's face it, it's time to impeach him now. Let the light of truth shine bright. The smoke and mirrors are not sustainable. And let's face it, the shielders' shields are not large enough to protect the con man in chief. He's too exposed at this time. And the other thing really that gets me, as far as I can see it, the Beltway is under enemy occupation as it was during the War of 1812, and it's time to free Washington, D.C.
Well, these aren't the British, though, but I appreciate the call, and I thank you. Carol, you're next with Mike Siegel for Jeff Kuhner at WRKO. Good morning to you, Carol.
Good morning, Mike. Thank you for taking my call.
My pleasure.
Regarding the EPA, I think that you can see, if you're watching it, that they, as a government agency, as other agencies are just becoming emboldened. And nobody is stopping them. So they make a ruling, they proceed with it, and nobody does anything. And I think a lot of these government agencies are becoming so emboldened because nothing is done to stop them. So they will. Now we just had several years ago, a huge fight in our Congress about the Obamacare and the individual mandates and being, the federal government being allowed to force citizens to purchase a product that they didn't want to. And so now the EPA is going to withdraw money from a person's individual account if they feel without due process that, they have violated some rule. This goes against everything that is American, and it's frightening. It's frightening to me.
Does it surprise you that Barack Obama would do this?
No, it doesn't.
Well,
that's more frightening.
That's what the scary point is. Thank you for calling too, Carol. Nice to talk to you. The one option to impeachment now, as I said, would be to wait on the premise that the Republicans would win the Senate, because Obama is digging his own political grave for the Democrats in the Senate in the way his policies are being carried out with this nonsense and this debacle at the border. And then when next January comes around, if the Republicans have majorities in the House and Senate, you file the bill of particulars with the articles of impeachment in the House Judiciary Committee, get a vote in the House. send it on to the Senate. You do need 2/3 in the Senate, but by that point, there'd be some Democrats who would probably go along. I think that's the way maybe to do this. And start with the lawsuit. Because if Boehner files the lawsuit on behalf of the House and Obama does not honor a Supreme Court decision, now you've got even more tangible evidence of impeachable offenses. All right, let's go to, we'll go to Joe. Joe, you're on with Mike Siegel in for Jeff Kuhner at WRKO. Good morning. Joe, are you with us? I guess not, so, no, I guess he's not there. All right, then let's try Jack next. Jack, you're on with Mike Siegel for Jeff Kuhner at WRKO. Good morning.
Hi, Mike. A couple of things. First of all, it's a little bit of I told you so. There are no WMDs in Iraq.
Right. Well, you know, the one thing I criticized President Bush about was his not communicating effectively. Because obviously Saddam had the WMDs. We know from the Israeli Mossad and their intelligence services that in the dark of night, in trucks, Saddam sent the chemical weapons to Syria. That's how Syria had them in the first place.
But not all of them, evidently.
No, not all of them. The sarin gas is still there, isn't it?
Yeah. Second thing is if we take the election and get the Senate and the House, why not simply defund the EPA?
That's one way to do it. And as a matter of fact, one of the things and by the way, Richard Nixon created the EPA. That's another thing he did. So anybody wants to call him conservative, I think you ought to think twice about that. Nixon created the Environmental Protection Agency.
Tricky day.
And he also talked about having wage and price controls. He had very liberal thoughts about certain things. Affirmative action was his. In Philadelphia, he did set-asides that the federal construction projects had to have some minority subcontractors, companies owned by minorities, on the job, or they couldn't get the federal contract. But with the idea of the EPA being defunded, how about eliminating it? I mean, you could just eliminate it.
Yeah. And as far as our Governor Patrick, since I'm from Massachusetts, I think he's got his own Willie Horton and Justina Pelletier. What they did to that poor girl was brutal.
Well, appreciate it. I thank you for calling, too. Good to talk to you. We're going to get into, after the 9 o'clock news, the Harry Reid story about what he said about the Supreme Court, but also, you heard on our newscast, Duval Patrick, and he's going to try to get a law passed in the legislature that he'll sign for helping women to get contraception. I want women to call in the next hour about that. My question is, we'll take it up in the next hour, why should we be paying for contraception for women? That's not a health problem. That's an issue of avoiding pregnancy problem. That's a choice of the individual. Why are we paying for it? Anybody can use contraception if they choose to, but why are we paying for it is my question. All right, let's go to John, who's next. John, you're on with Mike Siegel for Jeff Kuhner at WRKO. Good morning.
Hi there. Thanks, Mike. I just wanted to say one thing related to all the impeachment talk is, we take for granted now that the president is limited to 2 terms. And that actually took a constitutional amendment to get the president limited to 2 terms. It used to, there used to not be term limits.
Well, that happened because, as you well know, FDR, Franklin Delano Roosevelt, was elected 4 times, and finally after that they said, wait a minute, we're winding up with no different than we left England to avoid a king. Why are we creating that in our country? So they said 2 terms, that's it.
Yeah, so I think equally important, and this goes back to a little bit of what the woman before was talking about with Mark Levin. I agree with his approach of a convention of states because we need congressional term limits now.
Well, the only hesitancy I have about a constitutional convention is that unless you're very strict about it, the whole Constitution could be changed.
No, the Constitution, the Convention of States would only be to propose amendments. It wouldn't put the whole Constitution on the chopping block. It would be to propose amendments.
Well, yeah, but the amendments could mitigate. Look, we have an amendment that mitigated prohibition. I mean, there are amendments that could mitigate what we have now that many of us might like. You could pass an amendment, basically, if you wanted to eliminate the First or Second Amendment. You could do that at a constitutional convention.
There's a convention of Congress every year, right? So a convention of states is no more dangerous than a convention of the congressional.
Well, that may be, but the Congress can't pass a constitutional amendment. They cannot do it.
They can propose it just like the states,
but they can't, sir. You need 2/3. Look,
either way. So
you're not correct. You need 2/3 of the House, 2/3 of the Senate, and 3/4 of the state legislatures to pass a constitutional amendment.
Yeah, so that's right. And so with the Convention of States, you would need 2/3 of the states, but then still 3/4 of the state legislature. So it's no more dangerous than what you see everything coming out of Congress right now is to limit the First Amendment. Everything that would be coming out of the states would be to limit the federal government, not expand it. And so I want to to find who is challenging my liberal Democrat incumbent state legislature representative about this process, and there was no challenger, so I pulled the papers and got the signatures myself, and I'm running for state representative to build support for an Article 5 convention of the states. So if you're in Melrose or Wakefield or Malden, keep an eye out for John Locke on your ballot this fall.
I'm indicating to you, sir, that the whole Constitution would be up for grabs at a constitutional convention. The Congress, Article 5, the Congress, whenever 2/3 of both houses shall deem it necessary, shall propose amendments to this Constitution, or on the application of the legislatures of 2/3 of the several states, shall call a convention for proposing amendments, which in either case shall be valid to all intents and purposes as part of this Constitution when ratified by the legislatures of 3/4 of the states. You're correct on the numbers. You're incorrect on what could be done. The whole Constitution could be overthrown. It wouldn't be, but it could be.
It could happen out of Congress, and
It can't, Congress, sir. One more time. It cannot happen out of Congress. Congress can't pass a constitutional amendment without 3/4 of the states.
Well, the same thing with the Convention of States.
All right. I appreciate the call. We're getting nowhere. I'm just saying that if you got enough states to go along with the Obama crowd, you'd be in trouble. Let us go to Tushi. Hello, Tushi. You're on with Mike Siegel for Jeff Kuhner at WRKO. Very quickly, good morning.
Yeah, good morning, Mike. I kind of am not happy with the way you guys are speaking. Some calling to say that we're talking about American jobs, not menial jobs. Most of the jobs that is menial jobs are for blacks. I mean, basically that was what I just heard you people say. Especially, that was what I heard you say.
What I said was that illegal aliens coming in will work cheap and take jobs away from minorities and others who want those jobs.
Specifically, you said specifically, you mentioned black. That's the reason why I'm calling in, because menial jobs are not definitely a black man's job.
I agree with you, but I'm just saying, based on the statistics across the country, look, unemployment among blacks is double the unemployment rate of whites.
No, I get that. Beautiful. I get that. 100%. I get that 100%. Okay? Some blacks don't want to work. I know where I live in. I know the area I live in. Some of them don't want to work. Some of them sit on their ass and they don't want to do nothing. So, the problem I'm having is this. This is an American issue, not a black man's issue, not a white man's issue. We are supposed to be speaking on the terms of America. When we start differentiating white, or maybe white or black or minorities and all those stuff, that derails the actual target that we're heading for.
No, I understand, but the reason I brought up blacks was because I'm trying to figure out why any black person would support Barack Obama, since the unemployment rate among blacks under him is worse than it was before.
But you're not 100% sure that every black man is supporting Obama. Okay, you're not 100% sure.
Well, but he got about 90% of the vote.
Well, you're saying he got 90% of the vote.
I'm not saying it. The statistics tell us that, sir.
Cool. The statistics says he got 9% of the vote. Yeah, I understand, because then I was able.
All right. Well, look, I've got to get to a break. I'm only going to make the point. It's obvious he gets huge support in the black community, and I'm just asking why. If any African American wants to call me and tell me why, I'd love to hear it. Our number to Boston is 617-266-6868. Mike Siegel for Jeff Kuhner. Let's get your calls on a variety of these issues. What about this southern border? Should we impeach Obama? Should we wait? Is he doing the job the way you want it done? Does anybody want to support him? We have, in almost 3 hours, no one has called to support the guy. Does anybody want to support him? At Boston's talk station, WRKO. Stay with us. Back we are. Nice to be with you as we continue along. Mike Siegel for Jeff Kuhner. In the next hour, we'll get into Harry Reid and his racist comment about the Supreme Court. And we'll get into the issue of contraception. Sandra Fluke, the pinup girl for that whole issue, a law student complaining that we didn't pay for her contraception. What kind of jerk is she to say that we should pay for her contraception? Want to hear from women about that, too, as we get into the next hour. Let's go to David at WRKO. David, you're on with Mike Siegel for Jeff Kuhner. Good morning.
Hi, good morning. Hello?
I'm right here, sir. I'm waiting to hear from you.
Okay, my name is Stephen, not David, but that's okay. A little earlier, I called about Costco, but a little earlier you said that Sarah Palin was a popular governor who was reelected. She left office after 2 years. She couldn't...
Well, wait a minute. First of all, did you call earlier today?
No, I did not call earlier today.
All right, go ahead.
Okay. First of all, Sarah Palin couldn't handle her term. She quit after 2 years to go make money doing reality TV shows. Be that as it may, she was never reelected, as you said.
She was reelected a second term. And she, if you talk to the people in Alaska,
believes when
no, they're not. Whoa. What you mean? What kind of Christian belief are you talking about, sir?
I'm talking about the Christian beliefs of the baker in Colorado who choose not to bake the wedding cake for the same-sex couple.
Okay, fair enough.
They're just holding to their deeply held Christian beliefs.
Well, does he have a right to say, I'm not going to bake a cake for a gay married couple?
Not when it violates the law and it's a public accommodation. No.
Well, but does it violate his First Amendment right under freedom of religion to hold it, sir, to live his life according to his religious beliefs?
Yep, not when he opens a business to serve the public.
Well, can they go to another baker to get that cake?
Well, when Costco decides not to carry a book by a convicted felon, that's an outrage. Why can't they just go down to Barnes & Noble and buy the book?
Well, I'll answer that question for you. Yeah. On the one hand, it's about freedom of religion for the baker. On the other hand, it's about the issue of free speech. I realize a private company is not restricted by the First Amendment, but it's the concept of a public business offering books to people from all sides, and not politically, and it was political no matter what Jim Senegal says, not doing that to the public by suppressing another point of view. That just is harmful to this nation, and it happens too often on the left that they don't want freedom for people on the right to express themselves.
Right, and when the Supreme Court interprets the laws that conservatives don't like, they're activist judges, but when it's a decision that they like, everything is fine.
Well, first of all, that's true of both sides. Look, a decision you agree with, you're going to commend. A decision you disagree with, you're going to criticize. But the bottom line is, my view is, we follow the decisions because that's what the court has determined. And if I don't like the decision, then I got to fight another day. But we follow the law, no matter which side you're on. Thank you for calling. I mean, you follow the law. You can, but you certainly have the right to criticize the court for its decision. We'll get into that with Harry Reid and the question of contraception. When we get back, I think those are rather inflammatory issues, both of them. Mike Siegel here for Jeff Kuhner at Boston's talk station, WRKO. Stay with us.
News at the top and bottom, talk in between.
Executing assigned host duties flawlessly because I can't do wrong.
This is AM 680 WRKO, Boston.
Welcome back in, folks. Good to have you with us at Boston's talk station, WRKO. Mike Siegel in for Jeff Kuhner. Let's get to contraception. My simple question is, and I certainly protect the right of a woman to decide to use contraception if she chooses to do that. There are some churches, including the Catholic Church, that would say no. But that's each individual's decision as to whether, if you are Catholic, to follow that or not. If you're not Catholic and your religion says no contraception, whether you follow it or not is your decision. But I would ask the women out there, do you support the taxpayers having to pay for your contraception? I mean, after all, contraception is not a medical problem, a health care problem. It's a decision to do an act without having any consequence to the act, to avoid pregnancy. So I don't understand why we have to pay for it, why Sandra Fluke made all that falderall about it as a law student. I mean, why should we be paying for her to have contraception? And now, of course, Harry Reid and the Democrats in the Senate want to strip away what the Supreme Court said by passing a law saying that that a business, a for-profit business, cannot avoid paying for contraception and the health insurance they supply for their employees. Now, it's not going to get through the House, so it wouldn't matter. Boehner in the House wouldn't let that happen. But they're still wanting to do that. Why should a business have to pay for that if they believe, as Hobby Lobby owners, a family-owned business, a very closely held corporation, that's what the Supreme Court said, closely held corporations, why should they have to pay for contraception if they don't believe in contraception based on their religious beliefs? Under the First Amendment, we do have freedom of religion, and if it's their company, owned by them, closely held, then the company is their alter ego. It's a reflection of them. It's their company. That means they're paying for somebody having contraception, which they disagree with. Can somebody help me with that? And the women out there, if you want to call at 617-266-6868, you tell me if we should be paying for your contraception. Linda, you're on with Mike Siegel, in for Jeff Kuhner at WRKO. Good morning.
Good morning. I'm calling I want to check if you know or not. Is Sandra Fluke go to Georgetown?
She was going to Georgetown. I don't know if she graduated yet or not.
Well, the point you just made, my question, and I was born Catholic, my question is, if you're so intent on women's producing rights, why hasn't she taken on the Catholic Church? Why is she going to a Catholic university? She doesn't take the university on about birth control per se, and she doesn't take on the Catholic Church, so I think she's just another fraud.
Well, I think she's a fraud. I think, Linda, the reason that she would say she's going after the government, if you will, is because she wants the public to pay for her contraception. She's not expecting the church to pay for her contraception, and she's not going to change the church theology. I mean, this is historically the church's theology.
Correct.
The church has a right to have that theology. Now, you can follow it or not, whether you're Catholic or not.
You know, so doesn't Hobby Lobby. I just think Sandra Fluke is a bit of a fraud because you're for or against. She's conveniently fought institutions that are not Catholic. She doesn't take those on. And I feel that if she really truly believed that this was a right, then women in the church, working in the church or in the church, would also be entitled to contraception.
I appreciate your call, and I thank you for it. And, what can I say? I mean, this is a very obnoxious position. I don't understand why it's even one that's being fought for in the way Harry Reid now, in his incendiary comments, is supporting this. He, by the way, said there was 5 white men making this decision for women. Did he forget that Clarence Thomas, Mr. Justice Thomas, is an African-American, black? What an idiot Harry Reid is. I think the guy really is senile and demented, and he needs therapy. I really believe that about him. I think he's gonzo. All right, Virginia is next, 617-266-6868. Virginia, you're on with Mike Siegel for Jeff Kuhner. Good morning.
Good morning to you. I'm just wondering, where is a man who wants to have sex with this woman? Why isn't he taking some responsibility for the cost of not having a child? The man just walks away, and he doesn't take responsibility lots of times, even for the pregnancy. And also, as far as birth control goes, in general, it's not a good idea to get rid of a baby. But there are exceptions. All these laws and rules, they're not black and white. There are gray areas. It's like personal responsibility. Does a young 13-year-old girl know exactly what sex is when she starts kissing and hugging a fellow and all of this hormones are running through her? She finds out what happens when she gets pregnant. Or when I was a social worker, and I had a girl who had 3 children by her stepfather.
Well, let me ask you a question. I mean, those are grotesque circumstances, but let me ask you a question. Do you think that we should have contraception made available to high school and middle school students?
Well, I'm from a long time ago, and you didn't have sex till you got married. But nowadays, that's completely gone.
I mean, shouldn't that be up to the parents?
That's another question.
I agree with you about the men, by the way. Men should take responsibility, but that's not my issue here. The question is, do you believe, Virginia, that the government, my tax dollars and your tax dollars, should pay for a woman's contraception?
I think the people involved should pay for it, at least.
That
is the man, and the man's never around.
Well, I appreciate that, and I understand that point. I'm not never. Thank you for calling. Not necessarily not never. I mean, there are men who are abscond and leave town after impregnating a woman. You're right, but that's a separate issue. There are laws about that now, good tough laws that go after these guys. But the real question is, should the taxpayer pay for contraception? Why does Sandra Fluke think that she has a right to my money to have sex? It's incredible to me. Lisa, you're on with Mike Siegel for Boston's talk station WRKO Jeff Kuhner program. Hello.
Hi. I just wanted to make the comment that I think that, Harry Reid and a lot of the Democrats, the way they're manipulating this issue, it's so wrong. They're making it seem like they're restricting women's reproduction. It's so easy to get contraception. And from what I understood, this just limits a certain number of contraceptives that they'll pay for. Not all of them even with Hobby Lobby, that they'll still pay for most of them. And, it's just a complete manipulation to scare women. And I think it's awful. I really do.
Well, let me just say, Lisa, that you're right. There are what we understand, at least, to be 20 ways of using contraception. 16 of those ways are still going to be paid for by Hobby Lobby. 4 of those ways will not. The IUD is one of those. They don't want to pay for IUDs. So, but if somebody, let's put it this way. If a couple wants to get the male contraceptive that you can use, certain female contraceptives, they're not even birth control pills. I mean, there's not a great cost to birth control pills. I don't understand. Do you think the public should pay for a woman's contraception?
I don't. I really don't think it should be the government. But I do have a gripe with the insurance companies, and this is where I think they mess up because, they won't pay for a woman's contraception. I mean, birth control pills are pretty inexpensive. But, they pay for the men all these Viagra and all those medications, and a lot of men are just using them, not because they have real medical conditions. But I do see a bias there, but I have a gripe with the insurance companies, not with the government. I don't think the government should be paying for this. But
I appreciate it very much, Lisa. Okay. And thank you for calling, too. Good to talk to you. Let's go to Ileana next. Ileana, you're on with Mike Siegel for Jeff Kuhner. Good morning at WRKO.
Good morning. I have a question that I don't know why no one's asked yet. So I've used birth control in the past. Many women use birth control pills for medical reasons other than just the contraceptive reasons. And it's a pill. And I understand that if a woman has an unwanted pregnancy, it would definitely cost the insurance companies more money. But, for example, I have a thyroid condition. I take a pill every day for it.
Is it a birth control pill?
No, it's a thyroid pill. And
okay, well, then we should pay for that. I have no problem with that.
That's exactly the point I'm making, that my insurance covers most of it, as they do all pills, but I have a $40 copay. And why is the government not going to pay for that pill outright for me, since it'll cause a lot of medical problems if I'm not taking it all the time? I think if women cannot afford their copays of their birth control, there's Planned Parenthood, then they're probably on Medicare or Medicaid. So why is the birth control pill different from other pill that anyone's taking? That's my point.
And I appreciate that. By the way, let me just say, Ileana, that I might make an exception if a woman is on Medicaid and is destitute. For the public policy issue, we're probably better off paying for her birth control, birth control pills, let's say, which are pretty inexpensive, than having her have unwanted children and then have to pay the burden of raising those children for her. So maybe in the case of Medicaid, we might do that. But as a general rule, why should a law student at Georgetown, Sandra Fluke, take money out of my pocket to have sex?
Well, yeah, I agree with the point you're making, or more importantly, if they're going to pay for those pills, why won't they pay for the pills that I need to live my healthy life?
They should pay for your thyroid pills, no question.
Yeah.
And thank you for calling, too. Nice to talk to you. Let us go to Jerry, who's next. Jerry, you're on with Mike Siegel for Jeff Kuhner at WRKO. Good morning.
Mike, let me put my car windows up so that the noise doesn't disturb you.
Thank you.
I got to respond to that lady, Lisa, who was just talking to you, because I'm tired of that canard of an argument, and I got to push back. First of all, I have done some research on this, obviously, because this is a topic of discussion. There is not a private insurance company, and the reason I distinguish private from otherwise is because the federal government is different from, say, Fallon Community Health, or Blue Cross Blue Shield, okay? There is not a private insurance company that enables men to get their birth control method, which would be condoms, free of charge. Men are not given that same quarter as women. We can't buy and be reimbursed for our condoms, and they will not pay for our condoms. So we are not allowed a method of birth control. Now, the argument that she made about Viagra and stuff it just infuriates me. Restoring sexual function to either the woman or the man is in no way, shape, or form compatible to preventing pregnancy or providing the Plan B day after abortion pill. They're not the same. Stop trying to make that argument. I have no problem with women who are prescribed birth control pills as a vehicle for hormonal replacement so that they can have a healthier sex life.
Let me just say, Jerry, your points are well made, and I agree with you. But if you're going to use that birth control pill for that purpose, and not just for the pure purpose of contraception, but to create the hormonal balance that the woman needs, and there certainly are problems with that women have as they get up in years, then yes. But the prescription from the doctor needs to enumerate that. The code for the reimbursement needs to be precisely for that hormonal reason and not for just the contraceptive reason.
You're absolutely right, and it's not like a woman can present herself and say, I need my birth control pills because my hormones are out of whack. Well, there's tests that can be done to verify whether or not she is indeed accurate in that self-prescription, that self-diagnosis, and if she is, fine. There are protocols, one of which is birth control, to bring her hormones back into balance. But she can't just walk in off the street and say, I need birth control because my hormones are out of whack, trying to conceal the fact that she wants them because, as you mentioned, the government should not be in the job of subsidizing anybody's sexual behavior. It's not my responsibility. 48% of women in this country receive their birth control pills through an insurance company, free of charge, at a net savings yearly of $248 a year. If you as a woman can't afford $248 out of your pocket to prevent yourself from getting pregnant, then maybe you should really think twice about behaving in an activity that could lead to bearing a child. Because if you can't afford $248 for birth control, you can't afford to feed a child, and you have no right bringing a kid onto this planet that you can't afford.
I appreciate the point. That's very well said, Jerry. Thank you. Barbara is next. Barbara, you're on with Mike Siegel for Jeff Kuhner at WRKO. Good morning to you.
Good morning. I just want to make sure there's a question of semantics here. The problem with Hobby Lobby wasn't about contraception. It was about the morning after pill and RU38, the abortion pill, basically.
It was also about IUDs and a couple of others. There were 4 forms of contraception that were involved.
Yes. I understand, but it's really, their objection was really mainly about killing a life after it had been conceived.
That's correct.
So all this talk about contraception is really wrong. It's about abortion. It's about killing. It's about preventing a life from continuing. So all the left people want to talk about is contraception, but that's not what Hobby Lobby was about. They believe in contraception. They don't believe in taking a life.
No, that's a great point. You're absolutely correct. But the reason I brought it up the way I did is because for me, I would take all 20 forms of contraception and say, I as a taxpayer or the insurance company should not be forced by the government to pay for this. That if you want to have sex and avoid having pregnancy, then that's your responsibility to deal with, not mine and not the government's.
Right, but I'm just tired of the left calling it contraception when that's not what it was about.
No, you're right.
It's about life and preserving life.
You're absolutely correct. It was once the egg was fertilized by the sperm in those forms of contraception. Yes. That's where Hobby Lobby's family had the problem.
That's where their objection was. And everybody saying Hobby Lobby's against contraception is totally wrong. And I'm just tired of everybody talking about it like it was all about birth control. It's not about birth control. It's about life control.
Well, you know what the problem is in this country? It just shows, again, Harry Reid and his irrational comment about the court and about how this is going to stop women from having sex. Yeah. Shame on him, because you're correct. It's not about that at all. And the court decision only limited those 4 forms of contraception, and only in a case where it's a closely held corporation by a family or partners who are religiously devout and don't believe in what you just described as taking a life.
Right, and that's really what it was about, was taking a life.
I thank you for calling, and it's a great call, too. Appreciate it. All these calls are great. More women, if you would. Let's hear from you about this question. Should the government, should the insurance company, should anybody be paying for your contraception? Is that a medical health issue, or is it a personal behavior issue? What do you make of that? Men and women can call, but particularly I like to hear from women. 617-266-6868. Good to have you with us. Mike Siegel for Jeff Kuhner at Boston's talk station, WRKO. Okay, folks, back we are. Nice to be here. Mike Siegel in for Jeff Kuhner at Boston's talk station, WRKO, 924. We're talking about contraception. Why should I have to pay? Why should the insurance companies have to pay for your contraception? Look, if an insurance company pays for your contraception, then every single person insured by that company is going to pay a higher premium. So whether it's from the government taxation or from the private insurance company premium being raised, you're going to pay the bill. Why should that be, is my question. Maybe somebody can give me a good reason why. We haven't heard one yet. Lauren is next. You're on with Mike Siegel. Lauren for Jeff Kuhner at WRKO. Good morning.
Good morning, Mike. Interesting topic, but I'm going to challenge the context of the way you're raising the issue.
Sure.
Because at this time, of course, what liberals are doing are using this sensationalized verbiage that, Hobby Lobby decision was an atrocity against women, not determining their reproductive freedom, which is false. Your previous speaker was absolutely accurate that it is only regarding very specific types of birth control. Now, what I'd like to do is raise the issue regarding whether or not insurance companies should be paying for birth control in the context of other mandates for insurance companies to cover certain costs. For instance, in the state of Massachusetts, insurance companies are mandated to pay for hair transplantation on cancer victims. I think there are certain aspects, and forgive me because I don't have the details, regarding issues around in vitro fertilization. So to just raise the issue of birth control, and it's an absolutely valid issue, should be within the context of all these other issues that are mandated by state law for insurance companies to provide coverage in the Commonwealth, that we could clearly argue whether or not they are medical issues.
Well, but see, all right, it's a good point, but let me just say your analogy with the cancer patient getting a hair transplant, I can understand that because it was a medical purpose that caused the harm in the first place. In the case the fellow described, Jerry, earlier, about hormones in women, getting hormonal balance, that if a birth control pill can do that, then that's a reason other than just contraception. I expanded the question beyond the Supreme Court decision of limiting the 4 forms of contraception, birth control, if you will. My point was, why should I pay for any of them? That's my point.
I mean, it's valid. It's valid because I think that insurance, there used to be a time, you grew up in the 50s, there were limited things that insurance companies paid for. They were related to illnesses. But as you know, time goes on and there are special interests that lobby the State House, and then all of a sudden they want their specific issues covered by insurance companies. The cost of health insurance could be cut back significantly if we kept them focused on medical issues, quality of life, chronic illnesses, and all that. And birth control, it could be argued both ways. You know what? When I was at the age where I was using birth control, I had to pay for it out of my own pocket.
Well, thank you. That's my point. Lauren, I appreciate the point, and I thank you. You say it very well. But that's right. She's absolutely right. Let us go next to Jimmy. Jimmy, you're on WRKO with Mike Siegel for Jeff Kuhner. Hello.
Good morning, Mike. You're a great host. Well, it was on hold. I mean, you're like that in 1,000. They pretty much said everything I wanted to say. Principally, it was saying that Viagra is meant to restore function, and that birth control for women can be for hormone replacement and actually to create life. But what gets me is like these craven politicians and government agencies, thwarting the will of the people and going against the court and their activism. And this is nonsense. It'd be like, well, why don't you pay for my dinner and drinks in the motel room too?
Jimmy, look at it this way. Think about this. Sandra Fluke, as I recollect, she's fairly attractive and, is a law student and going to have, I'm sure, a great successful career, especially now that she's ingratiated herself with the Democrats. She'll probably get a lot of Democrat clients in D.C. When she graduates. So she's out there wanting to enjoy herself in her intimate moments with her boyfriend or friends or whatever the case may be. And now she's saying to me, hey, Mike Siegel, you ought to pay for my contraception. Why?
You're right.
Why? Why should I pay for her contraception?
Yeah. I mean, the whole nation knows her habits. It's like...
Well, whatever. I don't know what her habits are. All I know is that whatever her habits are, if she wants to have sex, that's her business. But why is she invoking and interjecting herself into my life, wanting me and you and Phyllis on the line and Heidi on the line and Paul on the line to pay for her having sex? I mean, that's all it's about.
That's all it's about. And then these other people, mostly union, is saying, well, it's part of my package, so I should have that. I earn that. That's
well, you may earn insurance, but not for that purpose. Thank you for calling. It's good to talk to you, Jimmy. Appreciate it. Mike Siegel in for Jeff Kuhner at Boston's talk station, WRKO. More women. Let's hear from you at 617-266-6868. Some of the calls are on the line already. There is an open line. We'll get to your calls, all of them, right after we hear all the latest news. 9:30 at Boston's talk station, WRKO. All right, folks, good morning. Welcome back in. Good to have you with us. 9:39. Mike Siegel with Boston's talk station, WRKO, and for Jeff Kuhner. It's been great to be here for these 3 days, and delighted to talk with all of you. We'll continue along on this question of contraception. My simple question is, going beyond the Supreme Court decision, which limited 4 of the 20 forms of contraception that the Hobby Lobby did not have to pay for, why should I have to pay for any of them? Let's go to your calls and get your answer to the question if we can, as we go to Heidi, first of all. Heidi, you're on with Mike Siegel at WRKO for Jeff Kuhner. Hello.
Good morning.
Hi.
I have a question for Sandra Fluke. How would she like to pay for my seasonal ski passes? That to me is more of a health issue than her having her recreational activity. I'm in my 60s. I've skied all my life. I'm an avid skier, and I pay $600 a year so I can ski. Now that obviously will benefit my health.
Yes, it will.
I'm not asking anyone else to pay for it, but no one is forcing her to have sex. And I totally agree with you. I don't know why I should have to pay for her recreational activity.
It's insane. You might be able to make a case for people in poverty, so you avoid having unwanted.
Absolutely.
But for her, she's a Georgetown law student.
Except I'll tell you, when you say you really have to qualify that when you say an exception for people in poverty, because all of a sudden you're going to find an awful lot more poor people than there really are. Do you know what I'm saying?
Well, the way I would do it is that you'd have to actually qualify for Medicaid in order to be able to get that. If you legally qualify for Medicaid, that would put you in the category that maybe we could make an exception.
Yes.
Listen, enjoy your skiing.
Yes, thank you. I'm looking forward to next season already.
You got to get out west, by the way. You got much better snow. You got all that ice.
I've skied out west, and I've skied in Austria and Germany and Switzerland. Yeah.
Much better. All right, thank you. That snow's much better. No disrespect to New England, but man, a lot of ice and rocks. Phyllis, you're on with Mike Siegel for Jeff Kuhner at WRKO. Good morning.
Come on.
All right, let's go to Rose. Hello, Rose. Are you with us?
I am here.
Go right ahead.
Good morning, Mike. I'm calling because at a very young age, I started my menstrual cycle. And I had to be put on birth control at a very young age because of issues. Well, my husband's insurance would not cover birth control, not the birth control that I needed. It had the least of side effects, and it was the best for me. I had to pay almost $30 a month. Well, the funniest thing is as soon as I went in and they told me I had to go in for a hysterectomy, they told me they would start covering the birth control.
That is hilarious.
And I said, thanks, too little, too late. But, I paid $30, and I only worked part-time. I paid $30 a month out of my own pocket to be covered because of medical issues, not just because I wanted to have a grand old time.
In your case, and I don't know we don't want to get into all the circumstances, but if you had legitimate medical issues and your doctor could write the medical code under that specific medical issue, then to me, yeah, you ought to be covered for your birth control if it's for medical purposes.
Yes, but, for this woman to say that, I just want to go out and have a grand old time, and for me as a taxpayer to have to pay for it, pay for your own birth control. I did for my entire life. And this started at a very young age, and I just don't understand these people's reasoning for this.
It's an entitlement mentality that Obama is, in a diseased fashion, spreading across the country. It's an entitlement mentality.
And I've seen it getting worse over the past 7 years. I have seen it get so much worse with this man in office, and he is just destroying our country, and I am just outraged over it. And I'm just ready to blow my top because I've just had enough.
Well, I'm glad you had a chance to blow your top right here. The best place to do it. Thank you very much, Rose, for calling, too. Let's try Mary, who's next. Mary, you're on with Mike Siegel for Jeff Kuhner at WRKO. Good morning.
Good morning, Jeff. Mike, it's a pleasure talking to you.
Thank you.
There was a guest on Mark Levin's show last night, a very well-spoken young woman who wrote a book, I think it was Assault and Flattery, and she addressed the issue that, the Democrats are always saying that the Republicans have this war on women, and she just, outlined so many different points that, it's totally untrue. And she said that basically, the Democrats are projecting this war on women because they're trying to cover them for every issue from cradle to grave, so that they want to give them the birth control, they want to do everything.
Well,
so
let me just, I want to just make one point, I'll let you continue. Remember something. When they got Obamacare, what they really wanted was a single-payer health system with the federal government having national health insurance. This is all part of that. What you just said is an example of what they're trying to accomplish, which is, yes, to take care of you from birth to death, like the Western European countries, specifically Norway, Sweden, Denmark, the Scandinavian countries, where you are taken care of from birth to death. Now, the people there got used to it, so they like it, but we're not built that way. We're built as individuals, as entrepreneurs, as people who take care of ourselves, and they're trying to force this on America. That's what Obama is doing, and this is a perfect example of it, having a single-payer health care system with the federal government being the national health insurance of this country. That's what they want.
Right, but these, the women, they just, they're being blindsided, and they're just not looking at the other side of the issue, and they just can't see that the Democrats are holding them back even more than they could possibly think the Republicans could. So it's just very frustrating, and, I'm against, giving all of this birth control free, and it's just, in fact, if I could add one thing to the law, I would almost put in that people that can't afford to have children and are just, reproducing without partners, that they should, maybe be sterilized. It's just, we're paying for everything.
I agree. By the way, I thank you for calling. There's not one woman who's called supporting me paying for her health, her contraception. Not one. Let's go to Paul next. Paul, you're on with Mike Siegel in for Jeff Kuhner at WRKO. Good morning.
Mike, sir, how you doing?
I'm doing great.
You know what? I have a little different spin on things here. I when I was married back in 2005, paid for health insurance for myself, my wife at the time, and my kid. And in 2005, I was paying about a little over $1,000 a month. You know
three
what?
People nowadays, if you get $1,000
right.
a month for three people, grab it.
Right, and you know what? Again, this was back in 2005, and I'm self-employed, by the way. So it was a private insurance company and all that stuff. You know what? if I'm paying big bucks every month on a private insurance company, then I better get a good bang for my buck. You know what I mean? If a woman's paying $1,000 a month for herself and her family, why not give her birth control? She's certainly paying for it.
No, she's not paying for it. She's paying for medical care, not sex care.
But you know what? We should be getting more for the money that we're spending. And as far as the government's concerned, you know what? We get up every morning, we go to work, we pay our taxes, and in my opinion, we're overtaxed. And in my opinion, we don't get what we pay for in this country.
Well, first of all, let me make this point clearly. We don't have an entitlement to have sex at the public expense.
But
we have an entitlement. We don't even have an entitlement necessarily to health care, but we've chosen to do that in this country.
Right, and since we've chosen to do that, now we're paying big bucks for it. Let's get something out of it. Why is it?
Well, why do you want? Well, then, okay, I tell you what, then, sir. If you want to have sex paid for, then the lady wants to have her skiing paid for. I want season's tickets to Fenway Park for the Red Sox. How's that?
And you know what? I think you should, because why are we sending our hard-earned cash over to other countries because they have a natural disaster and stuff when there's Americans? Brothers and
but you're begging the question. That's a different question. The issue here, look, sir, the issue here, let's make it clear. The issue is about health care, not about sex care. I thank you for calling. We are not going to get me to pay for somebody else's health insurance to include sex. Pure unadulterated sex as a recreational activity is up to the woman and the man, or the two men and the two women, as the case may be. It's not up to me. I don't want to pay for somebody to have sex and avoid having a pregnancy. Why would I want to pay for that? Why should anybody have to pay for that other than the person involved in the recreational activity? That's just the bottom line. And we should not be imposed upon to do that. Where does contraception become part of health care is my question. And this guy wants it because he pays high premiums for health insurance. Maybe if you want to eliminate the deductibles, things like that, that's fine. But don't tell me we should be paying for somebody to have sex. That's absurd. Coming up to 9:49 at Boston's talk station WRKO, the number 617-266-6868. Women, what do you think about that? He wants to have the health insurance cover your contraception and your recreational activity called sex. Mike Siegel here. Good to have you with us for Jeff Kuhner at WRKO. Welcome back in. It is 9:55 at Boston's talk station WRKO. Mike Siegel in. It's been great to be here. We'll wrap it up with your calls as to whether I have to pay for a woman's contraception or you do, for that matter. Let us start with Linda. Linda, you're on with Mike Siegel for Jeff Kuhner. Hello and good morning.
Hi, Mike. I'm calling because of a couple of things. First of all, I think the issue here has come up again and again about contraceptives and all of this, and that's out there no matter what. Insurance companies, the healthcare is going to pay for that, and if, blah, blah, blah. But the issue is abortion, and it all came up with the Hobby Lobby. So, I think they have their rights too. And their right is, they're the ones that built the company. They're not saying, I'm not going to give you 16 different pills or ways that you can use a contraceptive. But I would not want to pay for the 4 pills that possibly will cause an abortion.
Right.
So, and they should have their rights also. And they're the owners of the company. I'm 71 years old, and I'm not going to go to Hooters looking for a job because they're not going to hire me. So my choice is, do I want to go to work for Hobby Lobby because I know I can't get this particular abortion pill or not? If you don't like it, go get a job somewhere else.
That's a great point. I appreciate the call, and I thank you, and good luck to you, and well said. You sound very astute, alert, and dynamic, and I appreciate your calling this morning, too. And you're right. If you don't want to work for a company that has that policy and they can do it under the law because of their religious beliefs, go someplace else. But I don't think I should have to pay for some woman's or man's contraception. Ronnie, you're on with Mike Siegel for Jeff Kuhner. Good morning at WRKO.
Hey, good morning, Mike. Great job this week.
Thank you.
I just want to make a very quick point. What completely short-circuits my logic circuit when I think about this is the fact that the very same people that argue that contraception is a basic human right and it's the government's responsibility to provide it will grab that contraception, turn right around and head home and say, hey, what I choose to do in my privacy of my bedroom is none of the government's business. I just don't know what to do with that, Mike.
In other words, we want you to pay for it, but we want you to leave us alone.
Right. What I do in my bedroom's my own business until it comes time to pay the bill for what I do. Then it's the government's job to come into my bedroom and pay for it.
You're right. You're absolutely right. There's no, they don't want any strings attached, but where does the government come off having, or an insurance company have to pay for that kind of insurance? I don't get it. Janine, you're on with Mike Siegel in for Jeff Kuhner at WRKO. Good morning.
Good morning. Oh, my aching right lobe, I tell ya. I'm trying to follow Paul's logic there. So the only one who's getting a bang for his buck is someone who's not paying insurance, obviously. I mean, that's the logic that he's not following. Yeah, he thinks it's great that we all pay for someone else's bang. And, no, it's recreation. Yeah, pay for my skiing, pay for my kayak. Ronnie, the gentleman who was just on, absolutely dead on. I mean, I remember when I first learned about the group NARAL, and it was at that point that I personally made a decision that nobody should be paying for this stuff. If they want to pay for abortions and abortive medications and all that sort of thing, do a fundraiser like everybody else.
Get the private sector. You're right, Janine. You're absolutely right. I thank you.
Sector.
I appreciate the call, and we've got to close it up here. But I'm glad you got the point in, because that's a fundraiser, community, voluntary payment. If a church group wants to, they don't believe in stopping, or they believe in allowing free sex, and they want to give contraception, let them do it. Let private money do it. It shouldn't be public money. It shouldn't be my money, your money. It shouldn't be the insurance company's money if it's strictly for recreational sex. I thank you all very much. It's been a great 3 days. Man, it's flown by. And these 12 hours have been terrific with all of you. You're great callers, and Jeff has a great audience. And thank you all for your indulgence and for being with us. My name is Mike Siegel. Remember always, do be good to yourself and the world will be good to you.
News at the top and bottom, talk in between.
Executing assigned host duties flawlessly because I can't do wrong.
This is AM 680 WRKO, Boston.